I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon, Dr. Charles Wessner, or Chuck as we call him, of the National Academy of Sciences. He's going to talk about meeting the global innovation challenge specific to current U.S. initiatives. Chuck Wessner is a National Academy Scholar and Director of the TIE program, which focuses on technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Dr. Wessner is recognized nationally and internationally for his expertise on innovation policy, public-private partnerships, and government efforts to support the development of new industries with the jobs and growth that they bring. Reflecting this focus, he directs a major ongoing evaluation of the $2.5 billion Small Business Innovation Research Program, the SBIR program, the leading U.S. early-stage finance program, as well as assessments of comparative international innovation policies and best practice in state and regional innovation policies. Dr. Wessner provides policy advice to the White House and other federal agencies on questions of innovation policy, including support for basic science, applied research, the role of the 21st century university, and principles of cooperation between universities and industry. He works closely with the U.S. Congress, addresses major national commissions, advises the U.S. and other governments, cooperates with international organizations, and lectures at major universities in the U.S. and abroad. He advises technology agencies, government ministries, and the prime ministers of countries in Europe and Asia. As you know, the president has also recently launched a new innovation program and wants to make it a highlight of one of his specific current program initiatives. And Dr. Wessner is also obviously interested in the kind of work that we do here and the impact that we've had in the region as well as globally across what we're doing. So that's one of the reasons why he's visiting here today. With that, I'd like to get Chuck to come and talk to us about his programs.
Thank you very much, Freddie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate the fact on a Friday afternoon so many of you are here. I'm also very grateful for this microphone, because as you may note, lots of people, the IT staff seem to normally want to make sure you can't see the screen that you want to talk about. You can see it in front of you, but it's harder to highlight it. Actually, I'm leaving out an important thing here. Yeah, great. So it's a pleasure to be here. I've never been to Albany, but that's because I'm from Pittsburgh originally, and which is so far away. I do go around the world quite frequently. I was in Brussels Thursday a week, and I will be in Bratislava, the Slovak Republic, next Thursday with a stop in Prague. There's a tremendous amount of interest in innovation policy, as you know, I'm sure you know. In fact, let me learn something, if I can, real quickly about you. How many of you work here at the center? And you came as volunteers, or were you instructed? How many of you are American citizens? Let me rephrase that. How many are not? Because most of you seem to be. So, and how many of those are educated here? The non-American citizens are. Okay, so all right, this is very impressive. I want to avoid. My background is in international affairs, and I've always wanted to avoid what a German diplomat did for us when we were doctoral candidates. And he started off saying, you know, it is so great to be with a group of people who have a deep knowledge of international affairs, international economics, and history. And he said, I'm from Germany, which is a large country located in the middle. So I feel, with some trepidation, I don't think I need to tell you what innovation is, although you realize we could do an entire seminar for the rest of the afternoon about what do we mean by innovation and what constitutes it and how would you measure it. What I do in Washington is I tell congressmen that research is when you convert money into knowledge, and innovation is when you convert knowledge into money. They like that. One of the problems is that many of our colleagues in universities don't seem to understand that that's what SBIR does. It's a point I'll come to later. This is why we need to innovate. We absolutely need to innovate if we are to be safe, if we're to take care of this planet, if we're to take care of our children. And to their great credit, I think this administration gets that. For those of you who are tired, these are some of my take-home points. You can get those down and then close your eyes and let my voice lull you into the nap you'll need before you go out this evening. But this is essentially how we're competing. We want to compete and win, but keep in mind that we all win when we compete. You know, it's interesting that you probably share with me some deep concern and deep sympathy about what has happened in Japan. You know, but the financial markets are not sympathetic. They're systematic, and they simply understand the importance of Japan in the global economy, and anything that is deeply disruptive there is disruptive here. You've heard a lot about collaboration, and I think this facility is just an incredible example of that. I do want to say right up front, and this is the first time I've been here. I've heard a lot of good things. I've had the pleasure of hearing Pradeep tell us in Washington, but this really illustrates why we're going to want to bring people from Washington here. I'm just completely knocked out. I mean, this is fantastic. It is, and largely done, I think one can point out, without substantial federal investment. These partnerships are something that we've worked a lot with. I was privileged to work with a guy by the name of Gordon Moore. Some of you may have heard of, and anyone who hasn't should leave the room. But he devoted time when he could be deep sea fishing to working for 5 years with us on a 10-volume study on different types of government industry partnerships. One of the things that we need to keep in mind, and you could potentially be blinded to that when you look at this outstanding facility, is that the leading countries around the world are paying attention to the innovation imperative. They have high-level focus, which for the first time, and I really mean the first time in maybe 20 years. I think President Clinton understood this, but I would not credit him with high-level focus on this, meaning any type of sustained focus. And of course, the last president was challenged in some ways in these terms. Sustained support for R&D. This is something we do relatively well. We also have interesting programs to support innovative SMEs. But what we don't fully understand is that the other countries are investing very substantial resources to create, attract, and retain industries. It's a cooperative world, but it's also, if you ever watched a soccer game, you know, there are not many rules, and you have to play hard. And some teams play harder than others, and I think our team has not been playing as hard as it needs to play. I skipped over one, but it doesn't matter. Their president, President Hu, has emphasized that innovation is the core of our national development strategy. I was pleased, very pleased, to hear our own president talk about that, but also a crucial link in enhancing the overall national strength. Now, I didn't hear anything about consumer welfare here, okay? Understand where the Chinese have come from, and I want to stress, there's no criticisms here. I very much object to the moralists who think that someone's cheating what? You know, this is a system of nation states. They do what they, I'm very Bismarckian, you know, the strong do what they can and the weak submit to what they must. If we let ourselves be taken advantage of, that's our problem. But their point is that they're not trying to get better consumer products into the hands of the billion or so Chinese. They're trying to make sure that they're strong enough that no one will invade them again. When you visit Beijing, as I hope you have or will, it is sometimes disturbing as you go in the national monuments. There's always a sign up that the French burnt this in 1890, or the Americans and the Germans burnt this in 1903. I mean, it's, you know, when you go into the White House, there is no sign saying the British burnt this in 1812. We've sort of gotten over that. At some point, I hope they will as well. But there is a very strong national focus. And they are cheating, of course, by American standards. I mean, can you imagine a country that keeps investing in its children, that insists on high standards of education, that builds universities, that tries to attract the best and the brightest from all over the world? I mean, don't you think this is outrageous, you know? I mean, after all, we're America. They should, you know, coast and not work so hard. And they're also building R&D infrastructure and facilities. The things that they do that are a little less filled with humor. I mean, the point is, when I was out in Washington State, they were talking about their workforce needs, and I said, well, why don't you found another university? And they looked at me, you know, completely appalled. Build a university? That's the kind of stuff our grandfathers and fathers did. We need tax cuts, you know. I mean, we can't, you know, build universities for our children and their children. I'm serious, you know. Whereas the Chinese seem to think that they need to build universities just as fast as they can, put the best possible people in them, and grow their economy. It's strange. It's a strange concept. But in any case, this is a little less fun. I think some of you are familiar with the indigenous innovation, and it's putting a major strain on the trading system. But that's another topic. But one of the things that they are doing is providing financing across a whole range of things for small companies, for large companies, and for the infrastructure. They're investing in the future. And if you look at Asia collectively, I would hope there are two groups that should be concerned about that. The first, obviously, is our friends in Europe. You know, they had the Lisbon agenda. I don't know whether you're familiar with this, where they were supposed to become the most competitive region by 2010, and they were supposed to hit a 3% R&D target. I like to kid them that the Lisbon objectives are going to be met, but it seems they'll be met by China rather than by Europe. But if you look at these trend lines, there's reasons for the U.S. to be concerned as well. Again, this is not bad. This is just showing where the focus is, where the investments are. Look at countries like South Korea, passing a much larger economy in terms of shares of global R&D spending. And China is on a very, very steady ramp up. There's been roughly a doubling of global R&D in the last decade, from around 500 million to pushing $1 trillion. Now, I like to put this up when I'm in Europe, and I am frequently, just to make our friends in the Commission feel bad. This part is the U.S. share, if you have any doubts. But it does show, I think, graphically and powerfully. But I'm not sure this is done with purchasing power parity, which is, of course, what you really need to look at. This is how it breaks out in the U.S., and as you can see, this is a little bit less positive. Under Clinton, it was about 49%, 50% defense. And there's been a major push, which matters over time. And I'll come back to this in a second. This is perhaps some of our best news. Our steady, sustained investments in health research are one of the great attributes of the U.S. innovation system. A challenge we have, and I talked with Dr. Holdren, the head of the OSTP, about this just the other day. It's when you're putting that $30 billion into research, where is the money to translate that into products and processes that we can actually use? Where is the money to help you get the clinical trials done that you need to get FDA approval? We've had substantial increases in energy, which is desirable. But I would just remind you, as scholars, too often all the emphasis is on NSF.